Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Accounting with Oscar. It's great to be back after a month, I think a month or a couple of weeks. Thank you all so much for watching the previous videos on the 2025 February March Accounting Paper 2. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate each and every one of you who have subscribed to this channel. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean it's great, to start off the YouTube channel with a couple hundred of views. So we're a small family, right? We're gonna get there. So today we're gonna have something fresh off from the oven again. Right, today we're gonna be looking into the business studies paper. Yes, the 0450 paper. So this is the business studies paper 1 from the February March 2025 session. I just gotten this set of questions right this morning, so here we are. Come, let's have a look through this. So you know how I work. You can work and go through together with me, go through along with me if you wish to, or if you do want to try this out, you can always download this question, try it out, and yeah, use me as a guidance. So let's not doodle too much. Let's go into the first question. Now, this paper itself, before we go into that, so the paper itself is relatively easy this round, and you'd find most of the questions to be quite similar from the previous sessions that we had, the previous 2020, 21, 22 sessions. You'll see the questions are repetitive. That's what I've been telling my students all the time, You work up a couple of past years and everything's gonna be fine, right? You don't have to worry too much. I mean, the theories are all there, the questions are somewhat similar year to year. The only thing that's changing is your case study. That's it. But the contents, the requirements of your questions are very much similar. I mean, if you do observe the trend, right? So without further ado, let me bring you into question 1. Amir and Carla are business partners. They own a luxury hotel which operates in a niche market. Now, the business has a short hierarchical structure. Amir and Carla use Herzberg's theory of motivation to keep their 5 employees well motivated. Amir and Carla are considering opening another hotel in a different city. They will need to identify a suitable source of finance if they decide to expand. Secondary market research can be used to help a business decide whether it should expand. So, simple little case study that we have here. So they're operating as a luxury hotel, right? I mean, you can think of Hilton or perhaps Renaissance, So operating in a niche market, it's a specialized market, short hierarchical structure, 5 employees, possibly a small business. So planning to expand to a new city and looking for suitable source of finance, right? That's the information that we have here. So I'm going to start off with the first question. Now, usually for part A and B, these would be more simpler and straightforward questions. You just have to give them a straightforward answer. So we start by identifying 2 motivators from Herzberg's theory of motivation. So the key word here is to identify, right? You state your point straight. You don't have to elaborate. You don't have to explain the motivators. You just have to shoot them right in the head. So, well, literally, okay? No, not literally. I mean, what do you call that? In context, okay? Don't do it literally. So, give them 2 motivators from Herzberg's theory. So, if you're not familiar with the motivation theories, we have three. We have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, whereby you have this pyramid. So, you have to start satisfying your employees starting from the bottom level, slowly moving up. That's the first one. The second theory that we have is Taylor's scientific theory, whereby Taylor says that you have to analyze your employees and you have to analyze the task to see if your employees are suitable for the task. Then we have number three, right? Herzberg's two-factor theory. Now, for Herzberg, he mentioned that motivation had its own parts, right? You have your hygiene factors and your motivators. So the hygiene factors are supposed to keep your employees satisfied at work, right? But the fulfillment of the hygiene factors does not really contribute towards motivation. It's only to satisfy the employees. So your hygiene factors would be things like a good basic salary, a good work environment, and possibly giving them some socialization. Right now, those are the hygiene factors. That's not what we are looking at. We are looking at motivators, right? So going above and beyond what is necessary. So, two motivators, there are tons of answers to this, but I'm going to stick with two simple ones that I believe most of you would know. So, the first motivator I will include job rotation, right? So, letting your employees switch tasks from time to time. So, allow them to try to attempt different tasks. And number two, to accompany job rotation, I'm going to list down job enrichment. So, giving the employees more responsibility, right? Letting them, you're giving them a sign, that you trust them with their work. Okay, you trust them to handle more. So, those would be my two motivators. Of course, you can put in anything else which is a motivator, right? Anything that allows employees to achieve a sense of job satisfaction, self-fulfillment kind of thing. So again, if you have any answers which you think they may be correct, you're not sure, you can always leave them down in the comments below, and I'll be more than happy to to evaluate your answers. Yeah, feel free, interact with me in the comment section. Now let's move on to part B of the question. Now, part B, they ask you once again to identify, so shoot it straight in the head, two features of a short hierarchical structure. A short hierarchical structure. So we're not going on a tall hierarchy. It's not going to be tons of levels. You start from the board of directors, then you have your senior manager, junior manager, you come to your senior, you come to a junior, then you come to an intern. We're not gonna have that many hierarchies. A short hierarchy, perhaps you're gonna have 2 or 3 levels, maybe a manager, maybe there's a senior and a junior. That's it. So you don't go into things like senior manager, junior manager, then you might have a senior, right, followed by a supervisor. We don't need that. We want a short structure. So when you have a short hierarchy, what do you see? Well, for me, the first feature I'm going to point out would be a short chain of command. Makes sense, right? You have a short hierarchy, you have a short chain of command. So if I want to pass a message to a subordinate, or if I want to pass a message to a superior, I only have to go through a few levels. I don't have to talk to this person has to speak to another person, and that person has to speak to another person, right? We eliminate all that. So we make it a short chain of command. That's number one. Number two, being a short hierarchical structure, you would have a wide span of control, right? Because there are fewer levels. When you have fewer levels, one manager would have access to more employees, right? There may be more employees under a manager's control. So this is opposed to a tall structure. If this was a taller structure, you would see perhaps something like this. Now, this would be somewhat a taller structure. So when you have a taller structure, it's going to be a narrow span of control. But that's not what we're looking at. So my second feature would be a wide span of control. Now, if all is good, let me move on to part C of the question. Outline two advantages to Amir and Carla of operating in a niche market. So when you see terms like outline, that's where you have to elaborate. You have to explain your answer, right? Explain the advantages of being in a niche market. So, I'm gonna hit the rewind button a bit. What is a niche market? Right? A niche market is usually a more specialized market, whereas if you look into a mass market is heavily commercialized. This is gonna be, selling food, selling tires. Those are all a mass market, whereby you see a large number of competitors. I mean, you go down the street, how many cafes do you see? Tons, right? You go down the street, how many tire shops do you see? Tons. You go down the street, right? How many of these, what else do you have? Furniture shops do you see? Tons, right? Tons and tons and tons of shops. These are all operating in a mass market. So, if that's the case, what is a niche market? Right? A niche market, they focus on a specialized part of the market. They cater towards very specialized goods and services. So we are looking into things like selling tennis rackets, selling, well, okay, perhaps not tennis rackets. I mean, it's a smaller market, but there's still a lot of competitors. But if you're looking at perhaps creating furniture out of rattan, no, that could be a niche market. Or maybe this is furniture production using, I don't know, using gold. Who knows, right? We have tons of rich people in the world, so that could be a niche market, right? Producing cutlery using gold, no? Who knows? So, anyhow, what are the two advantages of being in a niche market? So, number one, I'm going to tell them that being in a niche market, okay, you're able to earn higher profits. So Amir and Carla have the potential to earn higher profits, which is true because usually products in a niche market, they would not be cheap. I mean, tennis rackets are not cheap, right? Even if you look at like golf clubs, or pool, what do you call that? You play snooker, you have that, what do you call that? The cup? Yeah. I mean, those are not cheap, right? So it's a specialized market. You look at horse riding. Look at normal shoes versus horse riding shoes. They're not cheap. So those are more towards a niche market whereby you have the potential to earn higher profits. So I'm going to make reference to the case study here to earn my application marks. Now, what are they in the business of? They are operating a luxury hotel, right? So I'm going to tell them they have the potential to earn higher profits. This is because the luxury hotel would cater towards high profile individuals, So there's no right or wrong answers as long as you're able to justify your point. As long as you're able to justify why they can earn higher profits, you would earn your mark. Alright, so I'm justifying my case by stating that this is a luxury hotel. So they will cater towards higher profile individuals, maybe managers, maybe CEOs, right? I mean, you don't see a normal person going on holiday to staying in a couple $1,000 per night hotel, right? Even I don't do that. Usually we just go for a couple hundred. I mean, that's already expensive. I mean, who's gonna stay in a couple $1,000 hotel per night, or maybe tens of thousands, right? These are all high profile people. Now, the second advantage here, I'm gonna tell them that Amir and Carla face small competition, right? So it's a niche market. Not many people, there are not many players in this market, right? So the only players you have, you probably know them. You probably know them. You probably hate them, or, well, I don't use the word hate, it's a strong word, but you know who they are, you know what they do, you know what they're gonna, what their techniques are, right? So Amir and Carla, they will face small competition. Now, I'm gonna explain or justify my answer again. So this is because there is a high barrier to entry to the luxury hotel industry. Alright, so I'm justifying my point. Why is there high competition? Because there's a high barrier to entry. No, it's not easy to operate a luxury hotel. You need a lot of cash, right? That's straightforward. You need a lot of cash. You gotta renovate. You have to make it as good looking as possible, right? You're gonna dump a lot of cash in. So there's a high barrier to entry. So this gives them the potential to earn a higher market share. Well, you don't really have to write that sentence down. I'm just doing it to give you more ideas of what you can elaborate on. But this is more than enough, right? We're giving them our advantage, our point, and we are justifying why we say this. So moving on to part D of the question, we're going to go into the 6 markers. Explain 2 sources of finance that Amir and Carla could use if they decide to expand, right? So it's an explanation here. You have to state the source of finance and you have to elaborate a little bit more, right? You could talk about the advantages of using this source, or you can talk about perhaps the effect of using this, right? So again, there's no right or wrong answer. It depends on how you can elaborate, how you can persuade me. So sources of finance, we have tons of this. We have well, you could use your retained profits, right? You can use a bank loan. You can go on a bank overdraft. You can do a crowdfunding, right? You could even go into perhaps potential, right? Potential public listing, yeah, do an IPO. So there are tons of answers, but pick something that you're able to explain well, something that you feel confident you have the points to talk about. No, some people they feel that I want to tell the examiner I'm smart. So what do? I tell you I use crowdfunding. But if you're not able to explain how crowdfunding works, then you don't get your marks, right? If you can't persuade me why crowdfunding, you don't earn your marks. So, what I'm trying to say is, you don't have to impress your examiner. You don't have to impress them, unless you really want to earn like I don't know, score 100 marks and perhaps get a photograph with Cambridge. You don't really need to, right? As long as your answers are accurate, that's the most important thing. There's no one you need to impress in this life except yourself. That's a bit deep there. So, okay, let's not go too deep. I don't want to make you doubt your self-worth. So, let's talk about sources of finance, right? So, I'm going to go with easy ones for most of the people out there. I'm going to talk about the first one. So, using retained profits. And for source number 2, I'll talk about a bank loan. So for my explanation on retained profits, I could say that retained profits would be readily available to Amir and Carla. No repayments are required, and it does not attract any interest. So you see how I'm persuading you, how I'm telling you that you should go for retained profits. So they are readily available, all right? You can access them anytime. No repayments required, don't have to pay anything back, and more importantly, we don't have to pay any interest. So does not attract interest. However, it is questionable if the retained profits are sufficient, right? It is questionable if it is sufficient because we don't know, right? You're operating a luxury hotel, yes, but you only have 5 employees. So it might be a small business, and we don't know how long the business has been in operation. If this is a new business, it may not be enough. So I'm just telling them it is questionable. I'm not saying it is, but it is questionable. The partners would also lose out on any interest income, all right, if they choose to use retained profits, because you're taking your money out of the bank. So potentially, yes, you might lose out on interest. So this would be my answer. Again, there's no right or wrong to this, as long as you can persuade me, as long as you can influence me. That's a very important part of business. It's all about negotiating. It's all about influencing. Even if you go out into the real world, it's about how you can persuade people, how you can influence people, right, to get them to buy your ideas. So for source 2, I'm going to talk about a bank loan. So I'm going to tell them that Amir and Carla could arrange a bank loan very quickly, right? Very quick to arrange. Now, provided a business plan exists. Yeah, it's very easy to get a loan. You can just walk into a bank and, they can approve your loan in a very short time. But you need to give them some security. Well, security not necessarily in the form of assets. The bank could also be secure if you have a valid business plan. Like, you tell me what you're gonna do in the next couple of years. As long as you have that plan in your mind, I'm not worried because I know you're gonna make it happen. Otherwise, why would you come here to get a loan, right? So you can arrange a loan very quickly provided a business plan exists. So the partners will make monthly repayments, reducing the tension or reducing the stress on cash flow, right? You don't have to pay out the full amount one shot. You just have to borrow a loan and you make a monthly repayment to the bank. So you actually save up on your cash flow. That's an important point. However, interest would have to be paid. This reduces profits. Okay, this is my answer. That's how I'm gonna craft it. You can craft it your way. So feel free, share it in the comments with me down below if you want me to evaluate your answers. But again, all these are from my point of view. You can talk about anything else, right? You can talk about using crowdfunding, I don't mind. In fact, if you do look into the previous 5 years of papers, you would see that crowdfunding is becoming a more popular question. There have been two papers I've seen in the last 2 years which actually discuss about crowdfunding. So they ask you about the advantages and disadvantages. Well, rather simple. The advantage of crowdfunding, you get to see how the public reacts to your business ideas, right? And it's an easy way to raise finance. You just have to get on a website, hop onto the internet, and bam, there you go. But the downsides of using crowdfunding is that if you don't raise the amount that you initially wish for, you don't get the money. So the money would be refunded back to the donors. So there's no guarantee you're gonna get the cash. And you're actually exposing your ideas to the world. So copycats, they're gonna snitch on you. So that's one of the downsides. You can have a look through that. I think it was in the 2024 paper 1, somewhere in 2024, and also in 2022 the October-November session, if I'm not mistaken. Well, anyhow, let's continue on. Do you think secondary market research is the most appropriate type of market research for a business to use when deciding whether it should expand? Justify your answer. So this is a general question. You don't have to make any reference to gain any application marks at all, right? It's just a general question on its own. Well, unlike something like this, they do talk about Amir and Carla, so that's a little bit of an application mark. You talk about Amir and Carla again, so that's where you have to use your application, but other than that, it's fine. So this is a general question. Do you think secondary market research is the most appropriate? So there are two sides to every story. You can talk about the advantages and do a contrast with the disadvantages. That's fine. You don't have to be all in for secondary. You don't have to be, all against secondary. You could always blend in a mixture, right? That's my safe spot, right? A safe way to answer. We just blend in some good stuff, throw in some good, throw in some bad, balance it out, right? Give a conclusion towards the end. That's it. So, talking about market research, you have two methods of market research. There's primary market research and you have secondary. Primary market research is where you are going to go down to the train stations, you're going to go down to the subway, you're going to talk to people, ask people, get their reactions, ask them for reviews and all that. So you have to do most of the work yourself. But secondary market research is where you're gonna steal, okay, not steal, you're gonna borrow other people's research data, right? Perhaps government statistics, right? Or studies carried out by perhaps some professional organizations, professional bodies. So we're borrowing their data. In fact, I like to call this second-hand data. So primary is more like a first-hand data. Secondary would be second-hand data. You're using data that someone else has used before. So I'm just gonna throw in the good, throw in the bad. I'm gonna tell them that secondary market research is readily available, right? So it's all there. You just have to get onto the web. You might have to download a few PDFs and that's it. So secondary market research is readily available. This allows the business to save time and costs, right? To save time and costs as they do not need to gather the data themselves. All right, someone else has done the work, so you're snitching on other people. Okay, no, you're not snitching, you're borrowing, right? So you save your time, you save your costs. You don't need to go down to the subway, you don't need to talk to people. Yeah, that's one of the good points. Now, I'm gonna go for a contrast now. However, secondary market research may be out of date. Yes, because someone else has gathered this data earlier, right? It may not be relevant anymore. So may be out of date and irrelevant for the businesses, for the business needs. Right? So may be out of date, it may not be suitable for you. The data may not work at all sometimes, right? It may not really satisfy your craving. It is also difficult to verify difficult to verify the accuracy of secondary market research. Because you see, your secondary market research is gathered by someone else, right? So there's no way to really say if the data is legit or not. I mean, anyone can false a survey data, you know. Additionally, this data, okay, this okay, or additionally, secondary market research is available to everyone. Hence, the business may not, okay, hence the business may not gain much out of it. Okay, so that's how I'm gonna craft my answer. Again, you can craft your own answer because that's the thing about business, you know, it's just so open. That's a beauty of it. It's free for discussion, it's open for discussion. As long as you're able to persuade me, I would give you a mark. Right? Because that's business. It's an open-ended book. Right? It's open-ended. Anything is correct if you're able to persuade me. I mean, there's tons of business strategy out there. So go ahead, craft your own answers. So with that, we have completed question 1 of this paper. So easy marks, we get 2 marks here from the motivators in part A, giving them 2 features of a short hierarchical structure earns you 2 marks for part B. Now part C, giving them the advantage, potential to earn higher profit gets you 1 mark. So telling them that you would cater more towards your higher profile individuals, you earn another mark for explaining this point. So small competition, that's the main point there, you get 1 mark. So explaining that there's a high barrier to entry, you earn another mark. So if you talk about things like earning a higher market share, you would also get 1 mark. But again, it's only a 4 mark question, so that's the most you would get. Part D, explaining the sources of finance earns you 1 mark. Alright, telling them, giving them the point earns you 1 mark. Giving them the source, okay, you get 1 mark. So explaining the point gets you further marks. So you can see I'm just writing more, just to give you all some more points. You don't need to write this much, right? You don't have to write this much. I'm only doing it to share some ideas with you, perhaps some things you can apply. Okay, so that's how I would mark if I was a marker. Alright, so with that, we conclude question 1 of the February-March 25 paper, and I will see you in the next video for question 2. So thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, share and subscribe. Comment down below if there are any other papers you would want me to discuss or any topics in general. Yeah, and I'll see you in the next video.